Welcome to Meet the Innovators series. This is our second series, and I am your host for today. I'm Mona Jhaveri. I am the founder and director of Sound Effects. And if you are just tuning in, Sound Effects is a charitable crowdfunding platform. We specifically support innovators who are actively working on solutions for cancer and other diseases, but who lack the critical funding to move forward. And so Sound Effects is here to help these innovators. And as you probably know, or may not know, that in fact, there are thousands of great ideas out there that are not getting funded. And these great ideas have the potential to address some of our most pressing problems and healthcare issues on the planet, such as COVID-19 and many others. But there's too many of them that fall into this valley of death, which is not a real place. It's a metaphorical place. It is, in fact, a funding drought, which precludes innovations and technologies from advancing. And this is a detriment to our people on this planet. And so Sound Effects was launched to change this. We feel that the way forward is to create a bridge between those innovators who are actively working on solutions and people like you who wish to see change and who wish to have better outcomes in healthcare. And so Sound Effects is actively trying to do this. And we, as our name suggests, partner with emerging musical artists. And it's these emerging musical artists that help us get our mission front and center into the popular culture. And we're incredibly grateful to them. And as an extension of our work, Meet the Innovators series is to bring innovators who are actively working on new ideas, new solutions, and who are currently on our platform raising money. And the idea here is to bring these folks to you and have you meet them and get up close and personal. And so today we will be talking to the founding team of IES Life Sciences. And before I introduce IES Life Sciences, I want to make sure that those who are currently watching live today, if you are watching live, please leave us in the comments where you're watching from. And if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up or a happy face emoji or send some kind of positive signals. That would be really great. And if you have any questions or concerns, thoughts, issues, suggestions, whatever it may be, leave them in the comments. We will be checking the comments after our Q&A. So without further ado, I want to introduce IES Life Sciences. It's nice to see you guys.
Nice to see you.
And it looks like, I was thinking actually I'm going to see you guys and you'd all have long hair.
That's because I got mine slicked all back because I wanted. Took me 20 minutes to get it ready.
Really? Okay. Well, I'm honored. I'm really honored. I was thinking that this is going to look like the live stream from the 1970s, and it would be very confusing to our audience out there. But in fact, you guys look fantastic, considering the lack of barbers and so forth around. But so for our audience out there, IES Life Sciences is a biotech that is developing a test for helping to predict the severity of COVID-19. But before we actually get into the company and the innovation, I actually wanted to ask you guys a question that I've been very curious about, in fact. I know you guys are friends, and I know your friendship goes way back. Am I right?
It does.
I have always been curious how your as two friends that go way back, and you're not scientists by training. You've got, Marc, you've got a legal background, and David has a business background, and yet you come together to be the founding team of IES Life Sciences. I've always been curious exactly how that happened, or what's the story?
David and I met 20 years ago on a healthcare-related project. And
okay.
it was an exciting project that we got involved in, and we learned a lesson in that project. And that is that great innovations sometimes don't make it to market because there isn't a funding source willing to back it. And that's what happened in that case. We had a tremendously exciting product that I was brought in. I was counsel for the corporation, and David came in to help do some fundraising. and we connected on that project. But unfortunately, that project never made it to market, and it's sitting in mothballs somewhere. And it was a device that should have made it to market. And we learned from that that what drives all of this is the money and being able to get the right funding. And the greatest idea in the world without the right funding ends up dying. And I can't imagine how many actually do. But
Yeah.
we after that project, we started working together on projects because we became friends, but our skills really complemented between his marketing skills and my legal skills and our combined business skills. And so we've been working on entrepreneurial projects of different types ever since, of different varieties. We're not, we happen to start in the biotech space together, but many of our other projects have been elsewhere. But this has really been our passion for the last 6 years, and we've basically dropped everything we're doing to focus 100% on this.
On IES, yeah. No, and I think what's fascinating to me is that you started out on a project, you get burned, right? Because that happens in biotech. There's a lot of failure, but failure. I don't say that in a bad way, because I feel that as a society we need to invest in failure. We need to go through these failures. Otherwise, we can't learn. We can't figure out what's going to work, and somebody's got to do this job. And so to get back up again and to do it again in other projects and currently in IES Life Sciences is a testament to just the kind of team that it's going to take to get great things off the ground. And so, I forgot about that story actually, but I've always wondered what brought the friendship and the workability between you guys together to launch this. And so
nobody else would have it. So.
Yeah, you get used to a lot of rejection, and but that's part and parcel of being the innovator. There's so many facets. It's not simply the technology and the components around the company. There's also a lot of sort of becoming leaders in your own right, standing behind a healthcare solution that you think could make a huge difference. So so let's talk about the technology.
Sure.
Tell us, this is a test. Now there are tests out there, and I think the public is aware of the two main tests that are out there: the one that detects the virus and the one that can detect the antibodies. Tell us about the IES test and where it fits in the scheme of tests, and why the public needs to take notice of this.
Well, our test does two things that are a little bit different. The first thing it does diagnose the disease, and it diagnoses it at the very earliest stages of the disease, because what we are measuring is the immune system's response to the disease, and that happens immediately upon infection. So we are able to measure early. But really what distinguishes us from any of the other competitors, and there are a host of companies that are developed various types of test products out there. They're sort of the two primary sets, but there are a number of them. But what distinguishes us is that what we're focused on is not just measuring the existence of the disease. We're focused on making a prediction based on all the science we collect on just how severe the disease is going to be in an individual patient. So we can look at the data that we have, and with a great deal of accuracy be able to determine if that patient is going to have a very severe reaction or a mild reaction. We're going to be able to look at that, and that information will be able to be used by the physician to make decisions about treatment, make decisions about allocations of resources, and that is what is tremendously valuable. And that ultimately is what will save lives, because we'll be able to focus on the people that need it the most.
Right. And tell us just briefly, how would this look? I'm someone who, I believe I have COVID. I come to my doctor. How does this look for them? They need to know whether they are confirmed and they are sick with COVID or have the infection. But what else can this tell us? Why should a patient ask for this test if in fact it's available?
Well, what's really important when you show up with COVID, whether you're doing it early on to screen or whether you're doing it with full-blown symptoms, the thing that's on everybody's mind is how am I going to survive this? Number one, and
Right.
and how much trouble am I in? How what kind of a what are the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks going to look like for me, and how bad is this going to be? And that's what we're looking to be able to determine. We're going to run our test and be able to look at that patient based on the results of that test, be able to say, this is a patient that's likely to have the most severe reaction. This is a patient, and to kind of gauge where they are in that spectrum and say, okay, based on that, doctors can make decisions about how to treat, where to treat, how severe it is, and be able to sort of give the patient some expectation of what the course of treatment is going to look like, and also use that information to be able to allocate resources, whether or not they're likely to need respirators, or likely to need to be in an ICU, or whether or not they can treat them outside the hospital. So all those pieces of information are vital, both to being able to determine how to treat the patient, and being able to determine that will help save their lives, help determine the course of treatment, the least amount of hassle for them, and also, and really equally important, determine how to allocate resources. We all know now that the resources tend to be limited. There's only so much that they can do when it's a pandemic. Now they know, the doctors will know who is likely to need these most important assets.
Right. Understood. And so it sounds like it's buying us time. It's buying us intelligence around what could happen potentially.
Yes.
And I would say there's a very few tests that can really do that for people, to really help us understand the outcome, a potential outcome, and how aggressive or non-aggressive a disease could be. And so I think this is incredibly helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, we knew when we started this that we could diagnose the disease in very much the same way that other people are. And rather than get into a crowded field where we were looking at jumping into with a number of different people, where there's a lot of competition and similar products, maybe we would a little earlier, a little more accurate. But in our space, and looking at this piece, there's nobody in it, and this is almost more vital because the other piece is already addressed by enough people, and this is not addressed at all. And it is in some ways more important, because understanding that, we'll understand how to treat, not just to treat.
Right. So my next question then, tell us a bit about the science. How is the outcome? You're able to predict a potential outcome of disease. What signals are you capturing? How is this happening in a snapshot that we can understand?
We measure the immune system's response to a disease. So the immune system releases proteins when it's infected with it. When the body is infected, the immune system is the first line of defense. It turns on to try and battle that disease in some way, and its response is unique for every disease. And so we have what we believe to be the only test that measures that, and so we can identify what that response looks like. And because it's unique for everyone, we can identify the disease using that. And because it's a quantifiable test, we can determine, not just whether disease, but again, that's severity, because we have, there are strong and weak signals. And so what we're looking at is that initial response, and it's an ongoing response. It doesn't just start and then end, but that's the initial response, and it's an ongoing throughout the course of the disease. But it may change based on how well the disease is doing, if the disease is getting better or worse. So we can monitor and watch a disease as it goes through process. But what we're essentially doing is we're looking at that immune system's response through a set of proteins. The proteins are called interferons. But what we're essentially doing is we're identifying what that immune system response is and how strong and how severe it is.
Okay. And David, do you have any, can you add to that?
Well, as Marc was saying, the immune system has a unique response for every single disease. And not only is it unique to the disease, but we're finding it's unique to the sex, to the race, and they're minor differences, very minor. But by finding that, we can identify the disease a little better. And with the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence, it gives us the ability to refine the fingerprint of the disease even more. So we can hone in on not only the disease, but we can watch it mutate. And as it mutates, we will see that happening in real time. Therefore, as it mutates, we can notify the vaccine makers, the therapy developers, and help them design a better therapy or vaccine to work with the new mutation.
Right. So it sounds like there's a lot of intelligence that can be gained through capture of these proteins of the immune system. I mean, it's that powerful, is what I'm hearing.
It is. I mean, it's the building blocks of your health. It responds to whenever you get sick. So we need to understand that, and we're lucky. We have patented the technology, and right now we're the only ones out there that can do what we do with the interferons.
Understood. And so I have another question to ask you guys, but before I do, I want to make it clear to those who are watching us, IES Life Sciences has a campaign currently on our platform. And if you have a moment, please do visit the website is below, and I will be putting the website in our comments as well. You can also go to the sound effects page, soundeffects.org. So the last question I want to ask you is, what are the next steps for IES Life Sciences? You raising money. I understand that there's a number of milestones that must be met before we can move this into a place where people might have access. Share with us at least the immediate next steps and maybe some of the long-term steps.
Well, I'll start, Marc. The immediate next steps are we need patient samples. We need both disease samples, and we need them in all states, from asymptomatic, symptomatic, and then once the person no longer has a disease. So we need all those types of samples, and we need control samples, which are non-disease patients that match the profile of the disease patients we get. So we're working with a major university, which I don't think I can announce yet today, that is going to be giving us samples, and we are in a pilot study with them right now on our test. From there, we will move it forward to artificial intelligence, machine learning, and we will let them refine the signature of the disease. After that, our hope is we apply for emergency authorization, and we're out to market. That's the short version.
The other half of that is, in order to do what David just said, is we need the funding to acquire the samples, which are not inexpensive. And, you know, the larger the sample size, obviously, the more accurate we get. And so that becomes a big piece of the puzzle, and one of the reasons why we're talking today.
Right. Well, on the campaign, if people donate their saliva, or they can donate their saliva, is that right?
Yes. And if they donate their saliva, we're not going to give back results to an individual. We're not allowed to by FDA rules. But we can incorporate it into the analysis of what we're finding.
Excellent. So this is the way people can get involved, at least currently, and become part of advancing this particular test. Along with donating, they can also contribute their own saliva, which is fascinating. So I want to thank you both. There are a couple of comments, but folks are watching us from Philadelphia, it looks like, which is where you guys are based. So I suppose that's not a huge surprise. But we're grateful to have you both on and sharing what you're doing. And again, for the folks out there, please check out the link and make a donation if you feel compelled. And stay tuned for our next Meet the Innovators. This has been so helpful to just get to know you and to more deeply understand what the test is about and how it can really help us. should IES actually get it to a point where we can get this in the hands of doctors and patients?
When IES.
when, and that, you're right, when the funding comes through, when this happens, this is going to be, I think, a breakthrough in how we deal, not just with COVID-19, but I feel other diseases that where understanding the course is going to make a difference in terms of whether someone survives and how well they fight the disease.
Well, that's true. We are a platform, and pretty much any disease that has an immune response, which is every disease, as long as we can get the samples, we can interpret it and find a test for that disease. So there's a lot of diseases out there that have no definitive test. If we can get the samples, we can make a definitive test for a disease. Yeah.
So just to close, everybody out there, keep your eye on IES Life Sciences, because this is a innovation and a diagnostic to watch out for and even participate in. So thank you both for joining us.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.